It's often the case that individuals that have had close encounters with ETs don't recall specifics around the events. On this channel, we've covered numerous cases of individuals having their memories wiped or repressed. To unlock these memories, ufologists usually suggest hypnotic regression, a controversial method for unlocking these events. While many are skeptical of cases like this, it's important to point out many of these repressed memories tend to have incredible similarities to experiences reported by other abductees. In this episode, we will examine one such event, the case of Steven Kilburn. In late April of 1978, a man in his early to mid-20s named Steven Kilburn approached veteran UFO investigator Budd Hopkins about a strange experience that happened to him about 5 years prior. Kilburn had a weird feeling that something had happened to him one night, yet he wasn't sure. He didn't see any UFOs or orbs, nor did he experience anything like missing time. It's important to note here Kilburn was a UFO enthusiast and had attended several meetings organized by Budd Hopkins on UFOs. Regardless, after hearing other stories, Kilburn believed that there could be a chance something happened to him that night in 1973. As such, Hopkins suggested that Kilburn try hypnosis to see what, if anything, had happened to him. Hopkins would recruit psychologist Dr. Gerard Franklin, and several weeks after the initial talk between Kilburn and Hopkins, a session would be arranged. To start, Steven gave some more context as to the night in question. In 1973, Steven was in college and living in Baltimore, Maryland. He had a girlfriend in Frederick and would drive down Route 40 to see her. Often he would leave her house late at night, and Route 40 had a very desolate stretch of road that was completely pitch black. Before going under hypnosis, Steven would discuss his feelings on why he believed something might have happened to him. He recalled believing he had seen a UFO or a bright light, but Steven couldn't remember it. It was more of a feeling, he would state, similar to the feeling of someone watching you. In addition to this, Steven would provide more conscious details around the event. He recalled staring at the dashboard, but couldn't recall just why. He also noted he pulled over on the side of the road, but why would he pull over on a dark remote highway in the middle of the night? Bits and pieces flashed into his mind, terrifying the young man. He seemed to remember looking at the rearview mirror and felt something was coming. In sum, his memories were very blurred, but he sensed something had happened to him. As such, Dr. Franklin would begin a hypnosis session with Steven. Steven recalled the night of the event he was quite tired as he was driving on the empty dark road. He rolled down the window in an attempt to wake himself up. After a few more minutes driving, the car suddenly came to a stop. Steven was extremely confused as to what was happening. At this point, Steven got out of the car and stated that he saw a metal fence near the road. Steven would then describe something truly bizarre. According to him, a metal-like clamp would grab his upper torso around his shoulder area, inflicting excruciating pain. The clamp terrified Steven, and as he looked out over the fence, he would see several humanoids, although he couldn't see specifics. Things would begin to get more strange for Steven in this session. As he would recall, it was now like daytime. He would also state that one of the beings from behind the fence approached him. Steven would look at the being and could see it was very white, bald, and a bit shorter than him. He said its skin was chalkish white and like putty, and it appeared to wear a black suit, although this was speculation on Steven's part. At this point, Dr. Franklin would bring this session to an end. While the session might have produced more questions than answers, future ones would unveil more details and provide more clarity around putting this event together. In December 1978, several months later, Steven Kilburn would decide to go under hypnosis once again. This time he worked with Dr. Aphrodite Clammer. She was experienced with conducting these sessions and had worked with Hopkins before. After putting him under hypnosis, Dr. Clammer would ask him about the night in question, and Steven would recall more details. When driving down a hill, Steven would remember seeing 2 bright blue lights down the road. He was confused since it wasn't from another car, as the road was empty, and thought it could be some sort of reflection. Steven turned on the car light to see if it disappeared, which it didn't. The objects moved to the right of his view and closer. Then the car suddenly swung to the side of the road. He compared it to a magnet pulling an object. The car stopped on the side, and Steven was confused as to what was happening. At this point, he looked in the rearview mirror, but no one was there. He got out of his car and looked over the fence, and the next thing he remembered was driving on the highway. However, during this time, as Dr. Clammer pressed for more details, Steven would cry out, "I don't want to remember. I'm not supposed to remember." Steven remembered once again a bright light coming down in the area and 3 entities approaching him. Steven would state, "I see the faces, and they're white chalky. They look like they're made out of rubber, or not rubber, like putty or something, and they're not shiny at all. Really a dull finish, kind of chalky and white, only not pure white." Next, one of the beings reached out and touched him. It stung, and the being seemed to realize that it hurt Steven. It's not clear what the beings were doing here, but Steven was afraid, and his memories still appeared to be choppy. He recalled the beings had long white fingers, and around this time Steven stated that more beings appeared, and one of them seemed like it was digging. Interestingly, at this time Steven became extremely calm, and his fear dissipated. Budd Hopkins speculated this was because the being artificially calmed him when he touched him. Steven was able to provide more details, now describing the being's eyes, which were black and empty. The being didn't have any ears and had a slit for a mouth. Steven pointed out too the entity's face remained expressionless throughout the encounter. After 2 hypnosis sessions, Steven had recalled quite a number of memories. However, much of his story he was unaware of. That would soon change though. 2 years later, he decided to undergo hypnosis one more time with Dr. Clammer. Steven suspected he had gone up on the craft, and there were medical experiments performed. He was afraid for some time to know what happened, but finally decided to find out. The session would reveal some terrifying details for him. As Steven was hypnotized once more, he would reveal he was standing outside the car, and a clamp-like device would grab him by the shoulders. It's not clear if the device was attached to anything, but the clamp would direct Steven toward a ramp which went into the UFO, resting on the ground. He would then walk down a hall joined by the being and enter an all-white, brightly lit room. It was curved and didn't appear to have any light source. Several beings were in the room watching, and Steven was then put on a table. Something came down from the ceiling seemingly by itself. Steven would then have more tests performed, albeit the details remained hazy. This would conclude the session, the last one. What can we make of the Steven Kilburn incident? Like many cases, the story has both strengths and weaknesses supporting the claim. The first weakness is that Steven Kilburn was a UFO enthusiast. In general, it seems likely that if someone were going to claim to be abducted, it would be someone in the UFO community. Kilburn had the knowledge and was familiar with what many alien abductees report and go through. Perhaps he wanted to fit in. The second weakness was that Steven's story comes almost entirely from hypnotic regression. Hypnotic regression can potentially generate false memories. It appears also during the session, Steven remembered things in bits and pieces, which seem to contradict each other. His memory of the event seems to resemble a dream, as it's often sporadic, and his recollection is non-linear. The third weakness in his claim is that there's no physical proof or corroborating evidence. That said, there are a number of credible alien abduction cases where people don't have physical proof or other witnesses. All this said, the case does have some strengths supporting the claim. The first is that the story shares many characteristics with other alien abductee stories. For example, the bright white room we see time and time again. Also, the beings appear to be very similar to gray aliens, or possibly just grays. One interesting feature that he pointed out too was the fingers, which he described as smooth and perfect. Travis Walton would describe the being's hands who took him as being odd too, with putty-like skin. In addition to this, there are a number of cases where individuals have their memories wiped, and after hypnotic therapy, they return. Moreover, sometimes these individuals report never even seeing a UFO. It also appears the beings made an active effort to ensure Steven didn't recall anything. Was Steven Kilburn abducted by aliens? And did he have his memory wiped? Or did hypnotherapy produce false memories, leading Steven to believe he was taken? Comment. Let us know your thoughts on this interesting case.